Recording. Fantastic. Well, welcome everyone in. Today we are going to be talking about some job placement strategies that we've found from speaking with some of our graduates, and as well as interacting with some people in the tech industry that we've spoken with in past tech talks. So as we go through this presentation, if you guys would leave any questions you have in the chat, we can get to those at the end. And yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So quick little overview. I'm going to do a short introduction to who we are as Tech Academy, if you're not familiar, and myself. Then we'll go over some strategies you can use on LinkedIn, some advice for resume building, as well as some advice during the interview process. Lastly, I found a couple tools that we've had suggested by graduates, as well as my own research. So we are going to wrap that all up with a Q&A. So a little bit about myself. I've been working with the Tech Academy in their marketing department for a little over 4 months. Prior to that, I was studying at City University of London, where I finished my business management degree in July. And after coming out of college, it felt a little overwhelming. I felt like I was applying to a lot of jobs. I was personally trying to do 15 to 20 applications a day, just trying to get as much stuff out there as possible. And nothing was really hitting. I was going through about 2 or 3 months, and I'd had 1 or 2 interviews, and just nothing was really working for me. And I really was struggling. I'm in a position that I've spoken with a lot of people, and it feels like they're in that too. So we've created this presentation to try to give you some valuable information on some things that can hopefully improve your job search. So firstly, we have LinkedIn. Everyone's familiar with LinkedIn. I'm sure everyone's on it. It's an amazing tool. It's probably the first place you'll go when you're looking for jobs. Some strategies that we found that work the best, and as well as some conversations we've had with hiring managers, was really to emphasize how important that first impression matters. When someone goes on and tries to figure out you've applied for a position and you've included your profile, which is now so common with the application process, that is the first time that they're going to see you and be able to know who you are and what your accomplishments are. So it's really important to have a professional looking LinkedIn profile page. So that first impression, when that recruiter or that hiring manager sees you, they are able to see who you are and what you stand for. I really recommend in this part doing a professional profile photo. Spend a little bit of time. Everybody's cameras are so good now on their phones. It's pretty easy to take a really easy photo. So going on from that, really recommend building out your network. This is reaching out to people that you might not feel that you haven't spoken with in a couple of years, but just growing those connections is really important. You're able to, obviously the people are able to see who you're connecting with. That's one of the main features of LinkedIn. Going on from that, LinkedIn is more than just a job application and a digital CV resource. One of the probably the best features of LinkedIn that so many other sites like Glassdoor or stuff along those lines where you're able to apply for jobs don't afford, that LinkedIn does, is the ability to connect with job hiring managers, connect with people in roles which you want to get, and be able to have conversations and build connections with those people and really get that firsthand experience for what they are looking for. Really easy. And I know I did this personally a lot, to just go through LinkedIn, put in the job title that I want, and just mass hit easy apply. There are so many people that are doing this. Like, this is one of the examples that I found while I was creating this presentation. This is for a junior software dev position that was posted 6 days ago. It's got 5,600 applicants. That is from all over, because this is a hybrid position. So there's so many people competing for these positions because it's become so easy now with Easy Apply, just to apply at the click of a button and send your resume out. But you really got to find a way to distinguish yourself from the crowd and really stand out and be able to communicate your value and your experience. So one of the best ways that I would recommend doing this, and we've had hiring managers that I'll speak on later, how to do this is to connect with these people personally. Say what, form those connections, make those conversations, and really just make that first step into showing these people who you are and that you deserve a real consideration for these positions. On top of that, This is an example of a LinkedIn page. This is from one of our graduates, Christopher Thompson. He was a huge advocate on really building out your experience, being able to describe it more than just I was an archetype for insight. He gives his real experience and he shows exactly what he's been doing. So there's tangible information on there. Like, for example, he wrote here, assisted leading electronic components and service providers and building LLMs and agent POCs. He's showing that's direct, desirable experience that he's used. Within this, I would be careful about using too much jargon. You don't really just want to overload it with, make it huge. I would keep it concise, key in on those key functions of your role. Find that nice balance of being able to communicate your successes and your core competencies within those past roles you've had. And finally, really good way, which I don't think a lot of people really take advantage of, is engaging with content. Like when someone posts a recommendation or a blog post, or they're giving an update on their company, being able to comment and engage and ask questions just right on that post is a great way to get more exposure and show that you're really interested and you're active within this sector and within this community. And it's a really good way to get your name out there and have someone recognize you. So really, really important thing, as we're gonna go on to explore later, is not just building off of your core skills that you have, that you're a really good marketing agent, or you have all these skills within Python and you're a great developer. But what companies are really starting to look for, and I'll go over some of the trends later, is that they're starting to look for soft skills. And what soft skills are is referring to the communication and the interpersonal attributes that you have, which enable you to effectively work better as part of a team. And unlike technical or hard skills, these are transferable across all roles in all industries. So that's what makes them so, so valuable. Some examples of soft skills are communication, problem solving, and leadership. Teamwork is really essential for collaborative projects. You're going to be working on huge teams when you get into most of these roles. Being able to effectively communicate is incredibly important. So being able to include these soft skills within your resumes, within your LinkedIn profiles, shows your ability to work as part of a team and function and be able to work more effectively. So what I have here, this is from the World Economic Forum. This is on their 2023 reports of future jobs. This is from their survey that they did, reaching out to a bunch of companies as far as what skills they believe are on the rise and which are showing an increased importance. And so as you can see, the top two there, creative thinking and analytical thinking, those are both soft skills. These are both things which companies are saying are the most important to them. We saw in 2023 a 73% growth in creative thinking. So you can really see how companies are starting to really foster this idea that these internal values which you hold are becoming increasingly important. And then you can see in comparison, things like AI and big data, having skills within that, still super important as we become more in this digital age. But then you go back to flexibility and agility. Those are things that are above which you would explain, or when I was first reading this report, I expected stuff like that and marketing and media and being multilinguistic to be so much higher than, but it really goes to show how important, how valued these soft skills are. Just another example from this same report. This is from Coursera. This is a site which you can go to learn certain skills. They offer a variety of different courses covering all sorts of different stuff. On the left there, it shows the amount of hours which it requires to complete a course on Coursera versus the amount of value which the companies surveyed are going to focus on that or expect to focus that on the coming years up until 2027, within the next 5 years. So you can see things like programming obviously takes a lot of time to become really competent with all things programming and being really skilled in a computer language. Versus things like creative thinking. Doesn't take that much time to finish a course like that or really become adapt your skills within that, but it's super, super important. We're showing that 50% or almost 50% of companies are prioritizing creative thinking within their workforce. You've got things like AI and big data, obviously a huge trend that we've seen. Resource management, another thing that we're going through. And then you can really see that all these ones down at the bottom, you've got a lot of soft skills, resilience and flexibility. It doesn't take a lot of time to become really proficient and really strengthen yourself in these skills that you probably already have from being a professional, working with teams your whole life, throughout school, throughout your past professional experiences. Empathy and active listening, something that's really important to be able to engage with a team, be able to effectively communicate. Are you hearing what is being asked of you on a project? Can you effectively communicate the product, XYZ? So moving on from there, we've got resume tips. I'm referring here to more of the things that you can do to build out your resume when you are sending this off for job applications. A lot of these refer to some of the things that we were looking at with the LinkedIn profiles as far as building out and formatting how it looks. So one of the first things that I would really suggest, and we've really found works very well, is using super optimal formatting. These recruiting agents and these hiring managers get so many applications like we saw. Being able to effectively and quickly and easily convey your experiences in a way that when someone opens it, they're not just like, what in God's name am I looking at? Something that is easy to digest and easy to understand is going to set a great example and leave a very good impression. And then the next part. This is one of the parts. We had David Vu. He's a co-founder with the software company Ribbon. He's been a hiring manager in the past. And when he was starting his company Ribbon, he had to go through a major hiring process when they were building out the company. He obviously got a lot of applications and a lot of cover letters. And one of his things that he said from his experiences was recruiters spend so little time looking at actual cover letters. He said that he maybe gave a cover letter 5 seconds, and that it's more of a barrier to show that you're willing to do the work, to do the bare minimum to be considered for that job. So within this, I would really recommend, and from this experience, from what we've heard, build one cover letter that you're happy with that effectively communicates who you are, your experiences, and your successes in your professional experience. But don't spend a whole bunch of time writing out these personal cover letters for each individual job. Make one that's effective, concise, and communicates everything that it needs to. And then use that for most of your applications. Moving on from there, really, really effective thing to do within your job roles. When you're mentioning that you were a junior dev at Amazon or you were going on with this, quantify your achievements. Be able to give numbers and tangible assets to use to quantify your successes within that are incredibly effective at communicating your successes. Instead of using vague statements, quantifiable achievements really demonstrate your impact in those roles and proves your contributions and really helps you stand out within that. And then once again, soft skills. Within this, I would recommend not really just listing out a whole bunch of soft skills, like you're a team player, you've got collaborative skills, you're an active listener. Within that, try to work it into the entirety of your CV or of your resume. Working through an example of this would be in my previous role, I facilitated regular meetings to ensure everyone was on the same page and actively listening. That shows that you are participating and you're actively, and you're a great steward of that company. And you're someone that is going to positively affect that company. And honestly, at the end of the day, what they're not, hiring manager is looking for, number one, do you have the experience to succeed? And will you be capable of doing the role that you're assigned? On top of that, these are people that you're going to work for possibly years upon years. So are you a cultural fit? Are you someone that this person wants to spend 8, 9, 10 hours of their day communicating and working with? Do you have the skills to effectively communicate? So really focusing on being able to communicate your these soft skills that we spoke about is very important and something that you should definitely not skip over. So going on from here, interview process. You've done all these right, you've got the interview. You're looking to communicate and land this job that you've been dreaming of in your head. One of the main things that we found and we've heard throughout this process, especially from Dave Vu, he was a huge component of this, was really truly understanding the role and the company. This goes on to spend a little bit of time researching what's the new products that they're launching, what services are they, what's their culture like within the office, what are their values, any recent news that they have. This shows a genuine interest and that you really, this is more than a job for you. This is something that you're interested in, you're committed to this company and helping them execute their vision. This also able to demonstrate your genuine interest in that company. And then moving on from there, preparing for interview questions. This isn't something like you have to memorize a giant script or write out a whole speech. This is more giving yourself an initial assumption of what might be asked. There's a couple tools we'll look at for what you can do on the next slide, but I really want to emphasize the point of being able to give your most confident answer. You don't want to leave the interview. I did this a couple times where I left the interview and I was like, oh, I wish I said that. I wish I included this information. I wish I had replied with this sort of information. Being able to have a good idea of what you want to say and when you're going to say it in that interview is going to help you be so much more coherent and just really leave that good impression that you know you can. Then last one is highlighting the strengths on your resume, which are relevant to that job. This is making the connections and highlighting the skills and experience, which really show the connection between your past experiences and that job role. One of the big things within a job role on LinkedIn or any single job post is they're leaving hints in there for you on what they are looking for. And it's not ever really explicitly explained, but they're pretty easy to find. There's little cookie crumb trails of what they're looking for. So if you're able to really have a good idea of what they're looking for and kind of make that understanding before you go in, it's going to help you so much as far as communicating what that interviewer or what that hiring manager is looking for. Then moving on from here, here's a couple interview tools we found. Our Tech Talk speaker last week was Scott Katzelnick. He graduated in 2020. He now has gone on to work for Braille Skateboards, and he now works at Amazon, actually. And one of the things that he used during his interview prep was this thing called Algo Expert, which is an AI tool which allows you to really get prepared for technical interviews. So this is a little more in regards to if you're going for a data or a software engineer role. This is giving you, within the technical interview process, it's giving you a lot of information and mock interview questions which you can use. There's loads of sample questions. There's a lot of really good video explanations on what's expected and why, per se, your answer wasn't quite as good. And then there's also this really cool new feature within their site. It's the Algo Expert Recruiting. So within their platform, you're able to complete the courses, complete the interview prep, and then go on to have a profile within that platform, which allows you to be viewed by recruiters. It's an active one that shows you're genuinely interested. You've got this commitment to yourself and to learning within your role to become the best that you can be. And then hiring managers can see that within their site. They can see how many courses you completed, what's your results. So it's a really cool feature if you're someone who's looking for a more technical coding-based job. Going on from that, or just to add, Algo Expert is a paid service. So if you're looking for something that's free, I totally understand. It's a financial commitment, so shelling that out is something that needs to be considered. If you're looking for something that's free, Huru is also a really cool one. This is one I found while researching. It actually takes the job description from any of the jobs that you play, maybe on Glassdoor, ZipRecruiter, Monster, Indeed, LinkedIn, any of them. You can put it into their service and their app, and then it will make interview questions based on that job description. So it's a really good way to prepare and get an idea of questions which you didn't really think to consider before that. Also, everyone's familiar with ChatGPT. I'm a huge advocate for ChatGPT. It's definitely a tool. I wouldn't fully rely on it. But it's there to help you. And so it's within the interview process and within kind of getting this idea for what's expected and what will be kind of questions will be asked. You don't feel blindsided at all. It's a really good idea to throw in like a simple prompt, like what would be expected within a data consultant role for an entry-level position for someone. And then just get a list of questions which you really hadn't thought of. And it's a good way to think of angles which you didn't quite initially expect when you were going over the job role. So within that, top tips for this, number one tip, it's always going to be resiliency and persistence. There's nothing that's going to benefit you more from continuing on and just putting your head down and continuing to work and look and connect, communicate, and really just make those connections. Spend that time, reach out to people. LinkedIn's a great way to do this. It doesn't have to be, hey, can you get me a job? But just going and getting a coffee, making that connection, showing that you're genuinely interested, getting your name and your face in front of those people is a great way to get yourself out there and have be able to be within that world of someone who needs to get a job, because that was definitely me. I wish I networked more. It made my life so much harder from having to be by myself and just sitting at a computer screen, applying to every single job. If you make those personal connections and your resilience, you continue on this, you will have success and it will benefit you. I guarantee it. So honestly, without that out anymore, just have any questions or comments throughout the whole thing?
Great work, Braden. That was awesome. That was so informative. Yeah, leave your questions in the chat and we can definitely get to them. But let's see. Just to add on some things, so there's also the technical interviews, and one tool that I've found specifically very useful is cracking the coding. I always say it wrong. Cracking the coding interview. This is more towards technical interviews, but I can share that. It's also on Amazon. And it's like one of the top books that gets recommended for technical interviews. Which, if you're not familiar with, usually you start off with a few rounds of interviews, and then to make sure your skills match the description of that job, then you do a technical interview, etc. All right,
Eddie,
looks
if
like we
you
got a
are
few questions in there.
Anthony G, would you recommend using ChatGPT to write cover letters or at least use a quick draft? Actually, Dave Vu was a big component of this. He almost said altogether, you can watch that recording. We have that on our Tech Talk playlist, which I'll add a link to this in. He was a big component of really just using ChatGPT to write your whole thing. I personally, if I'm applying for a job, I would like to create a more personal note. So at least if it is being read and if that's the final distinction, at least I have something personal to say and it's a little more related to my experiences. I definitely use it more like you're saying in this second part, use it to kind of give an idea of your overview and get that rough drafts. You're not spending like I know I spent probably 4 hours writing my I was applying for this one job I really wanted with the Trailblazers, and I was like, oh, I have to make this the greatest thing ever and connect with them on a personal level and show how much a fan of the Trailblazers are. At the end of the day, that's not the defining factor of what's going to get you that job. I definitely use it more as get an idea of how you can more effectively communicate your ideas and kind of have it give you some suggestions on what a rough draft might be.
I have something to add to that. I 100% agree. I think you should like use it as a rough draft and then put your own touch into it. But definitely a trick using ChatGPT. The more specific you are, the better results you get. So if you want to, for example, say the tone you want or give an idea of what you want your cover letter to look like, the more description you give it, the better outcome you will get. And then at the final, for the final touch, you can add in your little, edit it throughout wherever you feel like or you see fit. But ChatGPT definitely a useful tip for writing resumes and cover letters.
There is a very cool site which I found as well. It's called Is There an AI for That? It's literally, you can go on and you can search, you can find a whole bunch of AI platforms for, it felt like almost anything you're looking for. So if you're looking for something that gives you cover letter advice, I haven't personally found anyone, but I'm sure there's one on there that will can go through and give you suggestions within that. It's a really cool site. Highly recommend checking it out, if anything, just for fun. Yeah,
And then
definitely.
you can also use like, I know that we keep talking about ChatGPT because that's the most popular currently, but Google just came out with Gemini. There's Bard. So you can also like go through the different AI tools there are and just like, get all of them combined and then like join them together how you want it to look. So you can get like three different ideas of what your cover letter should look like. Um, so maybe that's like a better rough draft and makes it easier for you to make your final one.
Right on. Question for the attendees. Are there any issues which you're facing or challenges which you've felt you've hit in the job search process, if you're currently in that? Or when you were searching for a job, what were kind of some of the themes that you were experiencing?
I don't know if you saw Amber's message. I feel
Oh,
like she's having
oh, there we
some
go.
challenges, so maybe we could
Ah,
start there.
sorry. Scroll up. So Amber's saying, one of the challenges I experienced is transitioning to sales role from a sales role to a technical role in an entirely different industry. When in sales, much of the LinkedIn profile and branding revolves around uh, runs in the company you currently work for. Any suggestions for how to showcase your personality and new skills during the pivot? So within that, there's going to be a lot more skills which you think are or you wouldn't consider to be transferable within that. That goes back, obviously soft skills go without saying. You can your communication skills, your teamwork, your heart, your work effort, all of that go into that. What I would really focus on with that, this is something that I had as well when I was looking for a job. I had service jobs and retail. I didn't really have anything, but being able to find that connection between what you were doing and those core competencies, which might really feel like, okay, is this, I was selling XYZ, is that really going to be a technical job? Being able to bridge that gap and really like explaining how that really is going to be effective. A really good way to do this is also in the LinkedIn summary. That's something that has, some people have the most amazing LinkedIn summaries, and it's a way to really explain a little bit more about yourself and your value than simply doing on your CV and writing about those job roles. Within that, that's a really good spot to communicate that value and communicate those experiences that just simply your previous past employment isn't.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Hey, this is Amber.
Hi, Amber.
Yeah, I think that the challenge I'm facing is totally want to showcase those transferable skills, but it's also like I work in a very professional sales job. So my banner is my company's background, my taglines and, everything about the topics I discuss all revolve around the company I'm currently employed by, right? All of my branding is as an asset to that company. And so in as I finish my education through the Tech Academy and data science, and I want to start showcasing, okay, I've learned SQL and Python and data visualization and Tableau, like all of those things, it can put your current position in jeopardy. So I'm trying to figure out, like, does anybody have any tricks that's like, you can still use your LinkedIn profile to showcase your new capabilities, but that, I don't know, like sometimes your employer kind of owns your brand, if that makes sense.
Just to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. So is it you're concerned with your like job security versus displaying these new skills?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, how do I showcase myself on the hunt in a different capacity, like from, something completely different, making a career transition, just like, a lot of people are transitioning out of education or all of these things, but they don't want to jeopardize, where they currently are. And LinkedIn is a huge place where you build your professional branding, but in a lot of instances, that's not necessarily driven and owned by you. Sometimes it's owned by the company that you work for.
No, of course, totally understand. Number one, initial thoughts on that. I would personally say if you are within a role and you're building these skills outside, I wouldn't see that as a detriment whatsoever. You're actively engaging and making yourself, if you're taking SQL classes, you're building this, just putting those on your LinkedIn is showing that you're actively trying to become a more stewardess and more technological and trying to develop that personal growth. I don't think that necessarily is a negative whatsoever. I understand what you're saying with the trying to actively be on the hunt and build those connections. And my kind of advice to that, personal connections are not monitored by companies. You can go and make those, I would say, do it a little more on the personal level, build those connections with that person rather than sending like a big thing that happens on LinkedIn is you get these, hey, I'm looking for connections. Does anyone have any ideas? And you make that big post and you kind of get your name out there.
Yeah.
But they don't have to know that you're communicating and you're having these conversations. You're just engaging with different people in different industries. And you're familiarizing yourself with the broader industry as a general. So they're not going to track you down and be, oh, you spoke with this person or you added this person on LinkedIn. You can make those connections and have those conversations.
Yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate that advice.
Of course.
I have a question, Amber. So within this role that you currently have, is there no job opportunities for like a data science? Because I know technically in sales, I feel like sometimes well, is your company a tech company where you can have a data science position in the future?
I wish. We're very, very small. So really the ability to invest in a position that's focused on data science, we're not quite there yet. But that would be ideal, right? Not having to change companies, but able to change kind of the capacity that I'm working in. But yeah, that's what makes it tough. But yeah, I think it's unique in that it's just a very small company.
It is tough because I was going to say, you can say typically people who are in sales, like we've had people who've done tech talks and they just took cybersecurity to help their sales position, you know?
Yeah.
So I was going to offer that, but yeah, it's a little bit tricky, but I think uh, definitely going like messaging people that you don't have to like inform everyone. What Braden said, basically, you don't have to inform everyone that you're looking for a role and just doing it more like the clever.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions from the group? I'll go ahead. Let's see if I can get to it here. Go ahead and link if anyone is interested. It's a really big document. I'm not necessarily saying going to read it or anything. It's 300 pages, but there's some really interesting information in this report for future jobs. It goes over different roles, companies, there's some stuff on demographics in there, but it's some really good ideas in there. If you're at all interested, I'll put a link in there. That is that.
Also, it looks like we have a question from Andy.
Andy, sweet. So Andy's asking, I've been having trouble creating multiple versions of my resume, such as full stack, front end specific ones, back end specific, etc. Any advice on how to juggle this? I also am not sure if I could create versions that focus on different values. For instance, I'm interested in open source and civic tech, but with the skills I highlight for those are not the same as the ones I would do for the more corporate ones. I don't want to overwhelm myself and feel like I have 100 different versions if I can avoid it. Totally understand. So within that, I would personally recommend, what do you mean by more corporate versus civic, if I could ask that? Okay. I really don't think there should be any difference between that. Whether you're applying to a giant company or a startup, they're going to be looking for the same thing. Do you have the experience? number one, what is your experience? Do you have the education, and do you have the ability to be an effective team member? Can you hit and effectively work with the team to achieve their value, whether that is creating the newest Intel processor or that's on a micro level and you're building websites? Like the size of the company, I don't feel really matters. It's being able to effectively communicate yourself is what's valuable. It's going to be universal across the board within this job search. So unless you get a job which is incredibly niche and very specific, which you feel you compared to some of these others, I don't really think you would need to do that whatsoever. Maybe spend some time highlighting within the one, change within the ordering of your experience. I would always do most recent job experience to latest, because that's going to show what you've been most recently working on and your experience. But aside from that, unless it's a cybersecurity company, and for example, you work in cybersecurity cells or something, and you haven't included that because you've only got so much space, I think that would be where it's relevant. Or you worked at a fashion store, and now you're trying to get, when you were younger, and now you're trying to get a job building a website for Gucci or something. That's kind of where I would creep in those edits. But really across the board, I think demonstrating all your values, which you know are important and you can understand from that job positions, I would really stick to one solid, all-encompassing resume. Happy to help.
Let us know if you guys have any other questions. Also, if anything pops up later, you can always connect with us on our LinkedIn account. So if any questions pop up after this presentation, definitely reach out to us.
Absolutely. Let me get that for you real quick. That is our LinkedIn page, so feel free to connect with us on there. We love to grow our community, and yeah, just any of you want to connect with us on there. Anthony's asking, you mentioned LinkedIn first impressions. How important would you say connections are? As in, should we be adding someone who is looking in a similar role, or should we be connections we've actually interacted with? So there's kind of two ways to that. Number one, connections are people you really know. I know you could easily go on, and I'm sure you could just hit apply and hit friends on a whole bunch of people, or connect and grow your connections so it's super big. A bigger connection list aesthetically looks good necessarily, but my main suggestion within those LinkedIn connections is to actually reach out to those people. Are those people someone you're interested in talking to, and can they provide value or answers to your questions? Reach out to people that you how have they got that job? What was their successes in that? It's not necessarily just doing it for virtue signaling that you're interested, but really that it can help you. This is something that's getting that more information and finding out things, what's worked in the past, what's actually going on in those roles. What are things that I might have from that job role that was explained? Is there something that I need to work on to make myself? And within that, you can kind of understand what's going on from those conversations. And position yourself better. Are there tweaks to my LinkedIn? Do I need to focus on this more than another aspect? Do I need to focus on C# as opposed to my Python experience? And then at the end of the day, making those connections and having those conversations gets your name and gets people familiar with you. They might not have a job for you, but they might know someone that does. And being able to go, oh, I talked to this guy last week and he messaged me and he reached out and he seems really interested and he's a really good guy. You should absolutely check him out for this role. That's kind of where I was going with that. I don't necessarily think you need to go through and grow your connections list to over 5,000 or something ridiculous like that, but more make those, number one, those genuine connections with people that you have interacted with, and then find new connections which you are interested in connecting with and want to hear from. Does that make sense? Of course. Awesome. So this Tech Talk recording will be on our YouTube channel. I'll get you a link to where all of our past Tech Talks. If you're interested in finding out a little more about some of this stuff, one of our graduates, Christopher Thompson, joined us in October. I'm not sure if any of you were there. He gave a really good talk on kind of how you can position yourself within the tech industry and to make yourself more marketable in general. Dave Voos was also really good. That was one of the ones from the previous weeks as well. Super informative and kind of gives a real firsthand impression of what these hiring managers are experiencing when you're within the job search from their perspective, and gives it a better idea of what you can do on kind of that micro level to really make it easier for them. So they are going to take, if you're going to take the time, they'll take the time. It's kind of the idea. Let me just go ahead and that is the link to our YouTube channel. This recording will be posted in that. So yeah, amazing. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to drop them in. Otherwise, thanks very much for joining, guys. Of course, guys. Have a great weekend.